Module number 3 will talk about contamination hazard and its controls. So how does the food get contaminated? Well, from the source, through the vehicle, onto ready-to-eat food. So the sources are the origins of the pathogens that brings them into the food premises. So it can be coming from the food itself, could be coming from food handlers, from the packaging, from rodents, pests, etc. Basically anything that has the potential to bring pathogens or bacteria inside the food premises. A vehicle will transfer bacteria from the source onto high-risk food. So this can be hands, clothes, food and hand contact surfaces, could also be equipment, chopping boards, knives, spatula, etc., etc. Basically, this process is called cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is the transfer of bacteria, not only bacteria, but also any of the 4 hazards that we've specified earlier, so microbiological, physical, chemical, and allergenic, onto ready-to-eat food. So cross-contamination, the word cross-contamination is always associated to transfer. This is the key. So cross-contamination can happen in various ways. So from direct contact, for instance, if raw meat touched cooked meat, indirect if there was a working surface in between or chopping board, or it can also happen via draping. So this could happen into fridges that are not stored correctly, and I will show you how to do that in the next couple of slides. So how would you control cross-contamination? Well, first of all, the most efficient thing is to provide effective instruction, supervision, and training of food handlers. You also need to separate raw and ready-to-eat food. You should also use color coding. Bear in mind that color coding is not set in stone. So in one place you could be using one color code and a different place another one. The only thing is that you have to make sure that everybody within the premises uses the same one. And so I recommend to use a poster for that purpose. Effective cleaning and disinfection, and also use disposable paper cloth or color-coded cloth. And don't use hand wash basins for washing food or equipment. We'll see that in again a few times in the course. This is really, really important, and specifically on yachts where you have stewardesses and chefs washing food and perhaps even crockery, plates, glasses into the same sinks. So just imagine if you were to wash your hands above glasses. Wouldn't that be nice? So we really want to avoid that at all costs. In fact, the law requires to have dedicated hand wash basins. There was an inspection on a few boats in Monaco. That was at the end of 2019, if I can recall properly. And they requested all the boats to fit dedicated hand wash basins. Regardless if you have the space or not, they had to do it. So you would also control physical hazards by implementing a proper glass breakage policy. So what's a proper glass breakage policy? A glass breakage policy involves reporting the glass breakage as soon as possible, discarding the glass into a proper facility, and also discarding all the food that was beside it. So a broken glass can quite easily land 2 or 3 meters away without you noticing it. And so implementing a proper glass breakage policy also involves having a reporting procedure that doesn't punish people, that actually encourages reporting that. For instance, if you were to say, you have a 500 euro glass that you need to repay from your salary, you will never say that you've broken it. As opposed to having something positive would make it more efficient. So you also need to ensure equipment and structure are well maintained and in good repair and condition. You need to avoid repairing equipment into food rooms and don't carry out temporary repairs. So any kind of repairs, so in the pantry or in the galley, needs to be done after preparation and service hours. So this is not usually something that engineers enjoy to do, having to work at 1 o'clock in the morning just to fix a light bulb. But this is really the key. Because imagine that the engineer is carrying a bolt or a screw in the pocket and he falls into the food that ends up on the guest table, you're going to get into very big trouble. Ensure pests don't end up in food. So this is also relating to positioning electrical fly killers and any devices properly. Staff training, including the need to report defects immediately. No pins or drawing pins in food rooms. So that's really important. So especially notice boards, if you have, for instance, a chalkboard, notice board, just imagine that you rub against that board with the shoulder, a pin falls off into the food, you're gonna get into trouble. So these are prohibited. Don't use softwood, yet you can use hardwood, such as teak, for instance, or olive wood. I don't recommend it because the scars and the crevices will actually create shelter for bacteria, and so they're going to be harder to remove. So I recommend not to use wood at all, but if you really need to, you can use hardwood. And staff to wear the appropriate protective clothing. So appropriate protective clothing, in regards to physical hazard, means that you shouldn't have any detachable parts. For instance, a shirt with buttons, such as this one here, is not recommended in food rooms, unless there is a double layer that would isolate any parts falling off from the food. How would you control chemical hazards? Again, staff instruction, training, and supervision to ensure that any deliveries are rejected if unapproved supplier, and that's very, very important, because if you are using suppliers that are not approved, that don't have a proper recall or food safety management system in place, if the food has been contaminated by chemicals, you won't know it, and you might be delivered with something that's really nasty. Chemicals must be delivered separately and segregated from food. Actually, if you are receiving a delivery from a supplier and there are chemicals delivered with food, you have the right, and you must reject the delivery. No cleaning near unprotected food. So this seems very obvious, yet when I run the ship's cook certificate, in each and every single session, I see someone spraying around the food with a sanitizer or disinfectant. Obviously, food is not protected, not covered, yet they are still spraying around. No pesticide treatment if any risk to food. So this one is a little bit of a tricky one, because that means you need to carefully choose the products so they haven't been excessively contaminated with pesticide treatment. So if you are using organic products or something similar, the likelihood of having pesticide is very, very low. But if you are using something that's coming from large facilities, you might be running the risk of having pesticides. So you must wash the food, especially fruit and vegetables. No food stored in old chemical containers. Correct dilution and rinsing of cleaning chemicals. So that relates to checking the manufacturer's instruction, which I'm sure you always do. In fact, no, I've never seen anyone looking at the manufacturer's instruction for cleaning product. Yet this is very important. Also on yachts, you need to keep handy something that's called safety material data sheet, and this is required when you get inspected by MAPO. So you just go on Google, type the name of the product, safety material data sheet, you print it out, you put it into a binder, you keep it on the bridge, and when you get inspected, you will be covered. This is a 5-minute job that can get you out of trouble. And chemicals not stored in food containers or with food. And there is also another one that isn't in there, but I really need to mention, is that chemicals must not go into water bottles because somebody will end up drinking it. So you really need to pay attention to that. How would you control allergenic hazards? So you would treat allergenic hazard just like you would for the worst microbiological hazard. This actually kills people, so you need to be very, very cautious about that. I know that for chefs, it can become a little bit complicated to handle when there are different people with different allergies and so on. But this is really, really important to pay attention to that. First of all, you must provide menu description and labeling. So you label products that have been prepared, and you can also, and you should also prepare label products that are containing allergens, for instance, in the dry store. Listen carefully to customer and crew requests and provide effective staff training. In the UK, such training is mandatory. So listen carefully to customer and crew requests. This is also very, very important. In the last couple of years, we've seen things happening which are a little bit tricky. For instance, captains would request whether you have an allergy or specific dietary requirements prior hiring. Crew members would lie to get the job, and 2 weeks down the line, they would say, well, if I get in contact with fish, I'm gonna die. So this can be a very big problem, especially when you are in the middle of an ocean or doing a very big, very long passage. So be honest about it. This is crucial. Contamination. So you must, again, I will emphasize on that, use approved suppliers. And if possible, and that's not always possible on yachts, use branded products. Why? Because if there is a product recall that's related to mislabeling of allergens, you will be informed and you can find it on the internet. As opposed to using products that are not branded, you won't be able to find information anywhere. Suitable packaging, segregation. So segregation, if possible, you need to segregate and separate the preparation areas. If not possible, you need to prepare food not containing allergens and then food containing allergens at different timing, vice versa. But always at different timing. And always bear in mind the fact that cleaning will remove the allergen, but disinfecting will not have any effect on it. So if you just disinfect with the wrong chemical, for instance, a bench covered with flour, the gluten will stay there even if you disinfected it. So only thorough cleaning will remove it. Discard and label contaminated product, and also cleaning just like you would for the worst microbiological hazard. So proper hand washing, so at least 20 seconds. Wash the utensils and preparation areas properly. Really, really important. So which type of contamination is which? So M is going to be microbiological, P is going to be physical, C is going to be chemical, and I is going to be allergenic. So pathogen is microbiological. I'll let you think about that for a second. The next one will be grace. So grace is chemical and physical. Stones, physical. Bleach, chemical. So, by the way, is bleach allowed on board yachts? No, because bleach is not allowed by MARPOL. And also, bleach can kill useful bacteria inside the tanks. So, do not use bleach on board. Molds, microbiological. Cereals, allergenic. Bones, physical. Mustard, allergenic. Parasites, microbiological. Oil, chemical and physical. Toadstools, so these are mushrooms, like think wild mushrooms, or so they are chemicals. Just think about the magic mushrooms there. Drawing pins, physical. Toxins, microbiological. Shellfish, allergenic. False teeth, physical. Herbicides, chemical. Celery, allergenic. And milk, allergenic to lactose.